Welcome to another Scottish FA Return to Football. We're delighted today to have Dr. John McLean, the Chief Medical Consultant for the Hampden Sports Clinic, with us today, and also, as always, with me, our National Grow Manager, Danny Bisland. Today we're going to go over some important advice, particularly for the return of football. As the guidance starts to change and we start to see the restrictions lessening, it's really important that we follow some important measures. So first of all, before we turn over to Dr. John, we are going to just get a little bit more of the update on the return to guidance. Danny, can you just give us a little bit of an update of where we are at this moment in time?
Yeah, thanks, Paul. So as of May 17th, there are changing restrictions for a considerable amount of the country. We now have different local authorities in areas in level 1 to 3. So in terms of information that we've passed out over the recent days, if you go to the Return to Football Hub, you'll find some information on permitted group sizes, permitted travel, and it does vary across the country. I think one of the biggest things in terms of what we recommend individuals, and we'll talk about this with the doc as we do the presentation, really is trying to stress that people should be patient on the return and try and make as much fun activity as we possibly can. We also are encouraging people to liaise with the local authority, the leisure trust, the local provider in terms of appropriately risk assessing the venues. And there's information that we have within the Return to Football Hub with regards the correct content and the process they should be understanding from that point of view. I think what's really important as well to highlight is that the group sizes that we've recommended within the Return to Football Hub and the guidance is really that. It's recommendations. We are acutely aware that we have teams and clubs who are using 5-a-side courts all the way to really big 3G pitches and grass fields as well. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to give recommendations on group sizes. The biggest thing is that there are maximum limits on the permitted bubble sizes. And I really must stress that we're encouraging everybody within the football community not to break those rules and to ensure that they follow the appropriate guidance in terms of those maximum sizes. And the final piece as well, from our point of view, we've been doing this now for about a year in terms of activity coming and going. And I think that it's sometimes difficult to appreciate how far we've come, but we've still got a long way to go. And we're really trying to encourage every single club that we're working with to make sure that they follow the appropriate hygiene measures. It really is just about habits. And we're hopeful that because of the scale of the game in Scotland, if we've all got great habits in terms of what we're delivering within the football community, that's ultimately going to have a massive impact across all the communities across Scotland. So it's just a massive thank you from us at the moment. Please just go to the Return to Football guidance and please ensure that you're aware of all the permitted activity within your local authority. And please, please, please just have a little bit of patience. Make sure that people are having fun because we're seeing considerable amounts of people returning back to the game that we all love. So it's over to the doc now, hopefully, and yourself just to talk through the main areas in terms of the impact of COVID.
Danny, thank you so much. We're delighted, as Danny says, to have Dr. John McLean here. John, it's strange, as Danny said, we've been about a year probably and longer in terms of that, and we're still not out the back end of COVID in any way. Can you give us a kind of general update on where you see we are at this precise moment in time?
Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Danny. Hi, everyone. And as the guys are saying, it's absolutely fantastic to get back to a lower level of restrictions that allows us to get back to football. And, it's in no small part to all of us in the country that we've managed to get to this point. So it has been really difficult for us all over the last year. It's not just about the inability to be physically active, but as we know, that lack of social interaction, meeting our friends, being able to see our family, and the well-publicised but absolutely immense effect that that's had on our mental health. But the really good news is that with the decreasing numbers of positive cases across most of Scotland, And that's really as a result of two things. One is absolutely the vaccination programme and the fact that over half adults in Scotland have now had their first vaccine, and approaching a third. The second vaccine's fantastic. But for most of you that are going back to playing football, you're not necessarily in that group that's already been vaccinated. The other things that go with that is the things that we've all been doing as lockdowns ease, but during that time, maintaining our social distancing. Some of the things we'll touch on later on that we still need to do. And I suppose as a medic, I think more towards hospital admissions, deaths and illness. But what's much more important for us all as members of a community is as these restrictions ease, we're allowed more family interaction, more social interaction, and really importantly for us, in the game that we all love and been involved in, more football interaction.
John, that's really, really good to hear, and I think we all kind of know that the kind of journey that we've all been on with regard to COVID, and it's been, as you quite rightly say, it's been a journey, and we've seen a lot of things happening. But again, we start to see that bit about we're coming out of the end of a tunnel. We see vaccination, but as you quite rightly say, it's not the whole of the population. I think what would be really useful is we can out of this. What is that impact that's had on people from their physical activity levels, maybe even linking into their mental well-being? John, can you give a little bit of guidance or a bit of an update on where you see us at this precise moment in time?
Yeah, as you mentioned at the beginning, COVID's been with us for the last 15 months. Part of my job with the Scottish FA was being part of the group that put the protocols together. So myself and medical colleagues across clubs and the wider community in football put together the medical protocols that you guys have all been following brilliantly over the last year. And, as we get to this really exciting stage, the senior games just about to finish with the cup final this weekend, we can look forward to the Euros, which I'm lucky enough to be involved in, and crowds back in at Hampden for that. We just not need to take our eye off the ball and remember that COVID's a serious illness. And for the elderly or the vulnerable members of the community, it's potentially a life-threatening illness. And why, as I've mentioned, most people that are playing football are younger, but we all have older relatives and we all have vulnerable relatives. So it's really important that we look after those in our family. One thing I've noticed with looking after players who've had COVID in the professional game is just what the physical effects that COVID has had on them. Now, there's two groups there. There's the guys that have had to isolate because they are close contacts who have no symptoms, and unfortunately, they just had to spend 10 days in the house. But in speaking to club docs and physios, I'm really amazed just by the effect of deconditioning that short period, that 10 days of being in the house has had on them. And then when you add on top of that, the individuals who've unfortunately been symptomatic from COVID, we know that 10% of elite athletes in the country, so that's our Olympians and our top level athletes, footballers, sportsmen and women, 10% of them are still not back even to any basic level of training after a month. So it's really important that we remember the effect on our physical conditioning, that deconditioning that occurs, not just with having COVID, but also with being a close contact and having to isolate. So I suppose the final point really is seen on the slide is we really should treat this almost as a mini pre-season. So getting the go-ahead to go back today or when we move down another level, it's not just about going back to playing 2 or 3 games a week and trying to catch up and everything that we've missed over the last few months. It's about treating this, as I say, as a mini pre-season, and that will benefit us not only in the short, but in the much longer term.
John, thank you very much for that. I think that's so important, and we know that for everybody that's coming out, whether or not that's adults, children, or MD, we certainly do just want to kind of gradually see ourselves coming back to enjoying that sport that we really, really like. John, I think the last thing that we would like to kind of get is just that kind of general football advice, that bit from a medical point of view, back into kind of just what Danny kind of touched on there, that good practice. What are the things that we need to remember? And again, it's that bit about that COVID hasn't stopped. It's not the day and just the guillotine comes down and you go, right, that's it behind us. What are the kind of general bits of advice you could give us that would allow us to kind of gradually start to go forward again?
Well, it's fantastic that most of the country's moving to level 2 and many of the islands moving to level 1 today. But Murray and particularly Glasgow, where case numbers are continuing to rise, and even East Renfrewshire, where case numbers have been going up over the last few days, are just really a reminder that COVID's still there. And even when we're all vaccinated, COVID's still going to be around. And I think we will be practicing good hygiene and other good practices for a long time to come. So it's really about maintaining these good habits. And it's not just, again, to re-emphasize, it's not just about reducing the risk to us. And many of you guys will be young and fit and healthy, but it's to our family and the older are more vulnerable. So let's not drop our standards over these next few weeks when we're back. The advice, the Scottish Government advice about facts is really good and simple to understand. And one of the things that's really important is where we are off the pitch. Now, the good news is that the transmission of COVID on the pitch is very, very low. And apart from things like goal celebrations where there's prolonged contact, the normal day-to-day fleeting contact that we have in football, the risk of transmission from one player to another is low, which is great. A much bigger problem for us is off the pitch and indoors. So it's really important that we maintain that social distancing off the pitch. No matter whether it's 1 metre in a pub or in a other public venue, for test and protect will still be considered a close contact if we're within 2 metres of an individual who tests positive. So it's really important there's no spectators at the side of the pitch. And for the coaches and the subs who are standing there watching the game, they still need to be distanced. It would be really good if clubs were aware of who was present. Many of us will have used QR codes and filled in our contact details when we're going in and out of pubs or restaurants or public venues. And just an understanding of clubs who's present when Test and Protect come back and ask you to provide that information. And simple things like team photographs, as seasons start, there's a natural tendency to want to get these group photos. These will be used, unfortunately, by Test and Protect to exclude people if someone's positive. And similarly, different groups of players, particularly if you're playing multiple games, perhaps small games with small groups of individuals in a football festival, and we're mixing with multiple teams, try and keep that to an absolute minimum. The advice around changing rooms and showers is that they should still be avoided unless absolutely necessary. And it's really important to follow, as has been mentioned by the guys, local authority guidelines as to whether they're able to be used at all. And these are because we know that the risk of transmission of COVID is much greater indoors. That's why last week we could drink outside and not drink inside, although obviously for most of Scotland, that's changing this week. We should still avoid car sharing or the use of public transport unless absolutely essential, because even with masks on and the windows open in a car, you'll still be considered a close contact. And be aware of congestion around the entrance to the football facility, drop-off points, etc. And the last thing, and as I mentioned, this is something that we will undoubtedly carry on doing probably for a long period of time, is good hygiene practice, hand washing regularly, hand sanitizers, and making sure that they're easily available to everyone. And I suppose the final point is, it's been such a long time, but we're now getting there. We're now getting to the point of being able to get back to playing football. And I suppose my final message is look after each other, keep everyone safe, enjoy getting back to being active, being back with our friends again, and for us, getting back playing football.
John, we can't thank you enough for your time today. That was very informative, and as you say, we've been going for it for a long while. Danny, is there anything else you would like to add in before we finish up this other webinar?
Just one or 2 points just with regards picking up what John had mentioned there. In terms of parents attending games, I know that they are allowed to supervise the young children, so we do have people at the side of the park, and I think that everything that we've seen in the last week or so has shown that the prevalence of the virus isn't away. So it is really about good habits, and that can be helped by the club in terms of the protocols that they set up in place, but also for the parents themselves as well. Please remain socially distant, and please ensure that you're informing your club if you are planning on attending. And the other piece as well is regards the I think I mentioned this about the bubbles. The bubbles are really, really important, and the exemption that's permitted for sport is really for that sporting bubble. It's for the activity that's taking place. And I think that we're recommending that when people leave the pitch, that they remain socially distant as well. And we feel that that's going to have a bigger impact across the board. So please, just to reiterate all those things that John says, it's absolutely amazing that we're back. There's an incredible amount of effort that's went in from a huge number of individuals. I think we're up to about 14,000 COVID officers that have been trained up across the country, about 5,000 players. So everybody's playing their part, and it's really, really heartening to see, and long may it continue. And hopefully we'll continue to come out of this virus, and on the other side of the summer, more activity taking place. So it's a massive thanks from me.
Danny, John, we can't thank you enough for your time, and I think I reiterate that it's been a long, arduous journey, but I think as John says in there very, very well, please can we ask you to keep up those high standards. They think you've been doing very well as we move forward. As Danny says, continue to look at the guidance. It's there for a reason. It will continually help us to move forward. So for everybody in the football family, thank you very much. Please continue to look at the Return to Football Hub. It will continually have information on that. And once again, to Dr. John McLean, thank you so much for your time today. That was really informative, and it shows you the journey we've been on. Everybody take care, enjoy football, stay safe, and hopefully we continue to move forward. Thank you very much.